Hi everyone, thanks for joining me for this second card in our episode 4, I Miss Your Face, an online card class. If you've already viewed the other video, you got to see how this card was made. This is a triple fold out card, and if you didn't see the video, you're going to want to see it. And it's on the same blog post and area as the other card that you're watching right now. This card is one in this episode, and the second one is this lovely lily pad card right here. So this is the one we're going to make right now, and I'm going to show you the pieces that you'll need and the products that it took to make this. So I'll leave that right there for now. What you're going to need is Bermuda Bay cardstock that measures 8.5 by 5.5, and this will just get folded in half. If you like to score, you would score that at 4 1/4. Then you will need a Whisper White panel that measures 5 1/4 by 4, and this will go on the inside of the card. The front mat of the card is Pool Party, and it measures 5 1/4 by 4 inches. We have a small piece of Bermuda Bay that will go here, and it measures 4 1/4 by 1 1/2. That will go there. Now we need 2 pieces of Designer Series paper. The Designer Series paper is 5 inches by 2 inches. And then for the inside, we have a 5 inch by 3/4 inch strip. You will need a scrap of white so that we can stamp the 3 leaves and the sentiment on it. This is roughly 2 inches by 4 inches, and that will be more than enough. And then you need a white label, and this was cut with one of the dies from Stitched So Sweetly, and it is cut from Whisper White. If you order your kits from me, you will get these already cut for you. So then you will also need this little border die that is part of the lily pad dies, which were available during Sale-a-Bration, and they are right here. The stamp set that coordinates with it is Lovely Lily Pad. Both of these are now retired or no longer available because they were available during Sale-a-Bration, which has ended. And then the words for the front of the card, I used Happy Birthday from Label Me Bold. I love that you can stamp these in whatever color and then cut it out, leaving a nice little border. And I'll give you a tip for cutting straight here in a little bit. If you're using scissors, I have a tip for you. And then on the inside, I used a sentiment from Wishing You Much Happiness Today and Always. So Sentimental is available right now as a bundle with Stitched So Sweetly. However, the dies are currently back ordered, so I don't know that you can even order the bundle, but it will be in the new upcoming catalog, so it's not going anywhere. Then we need Designer Series paper, and we're using the Lily Pad Impressions paper, which was another item during Sale-a-Bration. So it's no longer available, but if you order kits from me, you will get the pieces that you need, and they might differ from the pieces that I'm using in the video, but there's a lot here and they all coordinate. It's just gorgeous paper. And then you will need a black Memento ink pad, as well as a lovely lipstick ink pad, and that'll be for the little sentiment here. Finally, you'll need something to color with, whether that's colored pencils, markers, alcohol markers, Stampin' Blends. Those are our alcohol markers. The colors that I used are Flirty Flamingo, both light and dark, Lovely Lipstick, light and dark, and Granny Apple Green, light and dark. Okay. Now, I also used 2 embossing folders, and the ones that I used were MOSAIC 3D and SCRIPTY 3D. And so let's go ahead and get started and make this card together. All right, so the first thing I want to do is fold my card in half. If you like to score first, go ahead and score that at 4 1/4. And then go ahead and set that aside. Let's get all these other pieces set aside, except I'm going to be using the pool party and the small piece of Bermuda Bay, and we're going to do some embossing with the Big Shot. So you need to bring the Big Shot in, and the SCRIPTY 3D embossing folder is what I'm going to put the Bermuda Bay piece in. Get that nice and straight, because these are words, and so you want them to be straight. And then we roll it through, and I just always bring it back through just so that the plate is handy for me to use again. Okay, so we've got that nice script on there. And then the pool party piece we're going to put into the MOSAIC 3D embossing folder. And this one, it doesn't matter if it's in there straight or not because the design isn't straight. When my husband and I went to Greece with the Stampin' Up! Group, we saw on Santorini Island tile work that looked like this. I took pictures of it because it was just amazing. The sidewalks, the work that was done, just beautiful. Lots of talent and time. That's got to be time consuming. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and glue this mosaic panel down to our card base. Get it on there centered. And then the next piece that we're going to be gluing on is the designer series paper. And this is directional. These are stems with flowers, so you wouldn't want it to go this direction. So just make sure that you're using it in the right direction. And if you order kits from me, again, you may get a different piece than what I'm using here, but I promise they are all gorgeous. When you order kits from me, you get 2 kits for each card. So remember at the beginning of the video, I showed you the triple fold-out card. You would get 2 kits for that. That includes all of the pieces and the designer paper. And then you would get 2 kits for this to make 2 cards. So you end up with 4 cards in 1 kit. So that's available if you're interested. The next piece that I need to put on is this border strip. Get that little piece out of there. And I'm going to put a little bit of glue along this, and I like to use my Elmer's dotted tape runner for intricate dies. The glue goes on, and if you do it on top of a silicone mat, the little dots stick to the paper and then they stick to the silicone mat, and you don't end up with lots of oozy snail glue, you know, stuff in the crevices. Stick that on. Okay, and then this goes right about there. So not quite centered. But I did center it from top to bottom. So about like that. Get it nice and straight. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and set this aside, and we're going to do some stamping, first on our white label and then onto this white scrap. We need MEMENTO Tuxedo Black for the flower. So I'm going to ink that up, and that will just get stamped right in the center there, just like that. And that's all we're stamping on that label. Now on the scrap, we're going to stamp 3 leaves. Whoops. 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to close the black ink, and for the words, happy birthday, I'm going to use Lovely Lipstick. This is an in color that is retiring, so if you don't have this color ink pad, get it while you can. And there are the words. Okay. Now, to do a little bit of coloring, we need to bring in those alcohol-based markers. And if you wanted to use colored pencils or something like that, you could do that as well. Let me show you. This is the card I did with the alcohol markers, the Stampin' Blends. And this one I did using Prisma color pencils. And I don't have those available to show you right now, but on the PDF, I will include the colors that I used. So if you have those pencils and want to use them, you could certainly do that. So I am going to go ahead and do this one with the Stampin' Blend markers, and I'm going to start with Flirty Flamingo Light, which is the lightest of all of these pink colors that I'm using. And I'm just going to very quickly color in my base. When you are coloring with alcohol-based markers, you want to make sure that your stamped image was stamped with a water-based ink, like the Tuxedo, the MEMENTO Tuxedo Black. Otherwise, you will end up with some bleeding going on. Like if you were to stamp with a water base and then watercolor, that black watercolored image would bleed because you're adding more water to it. Okay, so now Flirty Flamingo Dark is our next color, and each petal is going to get some flicking. Flicking is just starting where you want the darkest portion of that color to be and flicking away from you. As you flick away, the color gets lighter because you're giving it less pressure. So flicking is a technique that is something you want to learn when it comes to using alcohol markers. You can even use flicking with any other kind of medium, like colored pencils, regular markers. I find I do flicking now, since I learned this, with my colored pencils, and it just makes it all so easy. All right, so there is my second color. So when I flicked, I did not go all the way out to the ends of the petals because I don't want to cover up that original lighter color of ink. So now I'm going into Lovely Lipstick Light, which is a darker pink than the Flirty Flamingo, but it's the light version. I will go in with the dark later. So this time I'm starting again at the base of each petal, but I'm not even going out as far as I did before. So like this. So I've got the light, the medium, and the dark now, and it's all showing. So I'm just building colors up. And as you go, you just start to see it all happening. The different shades and the shadowing. It can be very dramatic. That's what I love about these markers. They are very dramatic when you use them. And they are a joy to color with. Everyone who's tried them in my classes has been surprised at how much they like them. Okay. Give buff these guys out here just a little bit. I think I got them all. Yeah. All right, now I'm going to come in with the Lovely Lipstick Dark. And I'm only going about halfway into that previous Lovely Lipstick color. This one is very intense, so I don't want to overdo it. And sometimes if flicking is too much, then you might just kind of dot, dot, dot to get the ink in there. Just like so. We're just adding color on color, deepening those shadows. And we will come back in a minute with the light version and kind of blend things out. Coloring with Stampin' Blend markers is not necessarily quick because you can shade and shadow and go back over, and you can just manipulate it all day long. You can come back to it days later and continue working even. So now I can see these lines here, and I'm just going to come back in and blend them out a little bit. Blend them in. And I think that I'm going to leave it like that. So this label is done. Now I can move on to the leaves here, and I'm going to start with Granny Apple Light. And very quickly just fill in the leaves like that. Then I'm going in with the Granny Apple Green Dark, and these are very basic leaves, so there's no shadowing that's done by the artist, the designer of this stamp. So I'm just kind of flicking up and doing my own thing here, but I do see those two very distinct shades of green. So now I'm going to go back in, and I'm just going to flick between the two colors with the light green again. And you can see that by doing that, it just kind of blended that in. And now I'm going to go back with the dark green and just darken that up again. See how you can just keep playing with this, adding and building color, and you can go back over the same color and darken it even. So it's all about layering. And when you use these markers, you want to make sure you always have a placemat down, especially if you're on a nice table, because the color does bleed through to the back. However, you can see that nothing did come through, but I certainly wouldn't want to risk it if I was stamping on a nice dining room table or something. All right, so now we're going to do some cutting. If you have the lily pad dies, you could use the die to cut these out. But I want to show you that it really doesn't take much time to use your scissors. Let's just get these off here. And in just a minute, I'm going to show you how to cut that sentiment out nice and straight. A little cutting tip that I learned from my mom when I was growing up. Finish cutting these. Fussy cutting can be very therapeutic. Some people hate it, but I do like it. I think you need to find a pair of scissors that are comfortable for your hands. It's kind of like glue. We all have to experiment with different glues to see what we like best. So scissors are like that. Okay, to cut a sentiment like this and get it straight, I like to use scissors that have a long blade on them. And then I just aim the end of the blade where I want it and cut. And because I've got this long straight blade, I just get that nice straight cut. That's as easy as it is. On the end here, Okay, now watch again. I'm just going to put this in here, get it where I want, and then aim the end of the blade where I want it to go. Just like that. So I feel like I get a nice straight cut when I use scissors like that, as opposed to this. I don't, because then I can't get the whole thing in one snip. My blades here are just not quite long enough. So get yourself a pair of Fiskars or something that have the nice long blades, and you'll see what a difference that makes. All right, let's put this thing together. We're going to bring in our base again. This is going to go right about there, and we need to add our leaves. So I'm going to add a couple here on the left side. Make sure that your leaves don't outgrow your card. So you need to have them tucked in enough. You don't want them going off the left side of the card. So something like that. And then this last one will go right about there. All right, now I do want this to be raised a little bit. So I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to add some dimensionals. These little foam pieces that will help raise it up. And that ought to do it. Like that. All right, and let's get this placed in here just like so. And then for the little happy birthday, I want it to be raised as well. But I have some smaller dimensionals that'll just make it easier. If you don't have the small ones, you can certainly cut down the larger ones. But since I have these, I will use them. Get these little backings off. And I think I'll come in with my tweezers and place that right where I want it. And there is the front of our card. Now we just need to do the inside and this card will be finished. So we're coming in with our inside panel, 5 1/4 by 4, and this decorative strip that'll go right here. However, I don't glue this down until I've done my stamping, just in case I mess up. I can always flip the paper over if I mess up, but if I've glued that designer paper down, then I have to go cut another piece. So let's go like that. Looks good. I got lucky. Now let's go ahead and glue this strip down. All right. Get that just nice and straight. Let's go ahead and glue this to the inside, and then our card is finished. I want to thank you for joining me for this episode 4 of I Miss Your Face, an online card class. I started these classes during the coronavirus pandemic of 2020 in the hopes that it would keep everybody stamping and inspired to be creative. And it's been really well received. I've had lots of people take advantage of my kits. I have sold out every week and I continue to make more. But I saw on the news this morning that it looks like things are going to start opening up. And so whether or not I continue doing these kind of depends on you. Have you enjoyed these online classes, and should I keep making them for you after coronavirus is a thing of the past? So give me some comments, let me know what you think, and we'll see where we go. So thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see if there's an episode 5 or not. Thanks. Bye.